I glanced at my watch again. Damn, it's only 10 minutes to 8. My brain did the math quickly. 10 minutes until the end of my life as I knew it. Or would everything be different? Maybe she had changed her mind and wasn't coming. I looked at the envelope I was holding in my hand. Damn, how did it come to this? Lindsay and I had been married for 7 years. Hey, was this really the end? No, it couldn't be, I thought. 7-year crises happen to men, not women. Life had been good to us. I had a good job, but I spent most of my time at home. We had 3 wonderful children whom Lindsay seemed to adore. We had no financial problems, and she gave me no reason to think she didn't love me anymore or that she was bored with me. So why was she doing this? What was her problem? Let's go back a little, and I'll tell you how it all started. I think I can even give you the exact date. Early January last year. That's when BT upgraded our local telephone exchange, and we finally got broadband internet access. Of course, I signed up right away and spent several hours playing games. God, what a difference from the old modem. Lindsay sat and watched me for several evenings. She had never been interested in computers, but decided she'd better learn how to use one, as the kids would soon be old enough to play on them and use them for schoolwork. With all the news about strange guys harassing young girls on the internet, I'd better know how it all works so they don't blind me with their scientific knowledge, Lindsay said. Lindsay signed up for a beginner's course at a local college. I'm pretty good with computers, but I have to admit that I'm not very good at teaching others. I'm too impatient. For example, when a student has a problem, I solve it without even letting them understand what happened. Yeah, great. But what did you do? You did it so fast I didn't catch it. How many times have I heard that phrase? I know that Lindsay did well in the beginner's classes and even joined a group of mom observers that someone advertised at the local library. All I know about this group is that they seem to monitor chat rooms for children looking for suspicious people and things like that. I have to admit, I never paid much attention to it. I remember Lindsay saying she didn't have any time for herself because she had to monitor the chat rooms when the kids got home from school. When our kids were little, she just didn't have the time. But she said that when the kids got older, she would be able to do her own thing. For a month or two, Lindsay spent a couple of hours every evening on the computer, chatting with friends she had found in her group. I can't say I paid much attention to it, although I admit it took time away from my own computer. I remember thinking that we would have to buy another computer if she kept it up. But then the novelty seemed to wear off, and Lindsay suddenly stopped going online and started talking on the phone for long periods of time in the kitchen, obviously with other moms from her group, some of whom I knew from school, and others I didn't. Over time, Lindsay must have started using our home computer during the day while I was at work. Lindsay was a stay-at-home mom, because I rarely saw her using it in the evenings. Well, maybe a couple of times to write a letter or something like that. As far as I knew, everything was fine in our marriage. At least that was the case until the end of May, right after my birthday. My parents sent me a new digital video camera so I could film the kids growing up and send them copies on discs. Oh, let me explain. After my father retired, my parents moved to New Zealand to live near my brother and sister, who had emigrated there with their families a few years earlier. No, we didn't emigrate, although I wanted to. Lindsay didn't want to move so far away from her family. I guess I can't blame her. But videos take up a lot more space on a hard drive than photos, so I needed to upgrade my system a bit. That meant installing a larger hard drive, the maximum amount of memory that could be installed on the motherboard, and a general cleanup of the computer. You know, delete all the junk and programs I don't need. In the end, I decided to completely reinstall the system. You see, I do a bit of writing in my spare time, so I have a lot of unnecessary programs on my computer. When installing the new hard drive, I had to decide what to get rid of and what to keep. One of the programs I had picked up somewhere was for tracking keystrokes. Did it work? Well, I had no idea. Why did I need it? Well, I downloaded it in the first place because I thought it would be useful to keep an eye on what the kids were doing when they got old enough to use the computer. You know the funny stories you hear. But in the meantime, the disk was sitting in my desk drawer with all the other junk. Anyway, before installing a new hard drive, I decided it wouldn't hurt to run the keylogger and a couple of other free programs I had lying around to see what they could do. As I said, I was planning to do a clean install after installing the new hard drive, so it made sense to test these programs on the old installation. I installed the keylogger and other programs, then played around with them a bit. I left the keylogger on my system, setting it to run when the computer booted up. I decided to see what it would do over the next few days. Did I tell Lindsay about the keystroke tracking program? No, I didn't. I didn't see the point, as I doubted she even knew what a keystroke tracking program was. The following Saturday morning, Lindsay went shopping with her mother, taking the kids with her. I figured she would go to her mother's for lunch. That was her usual Saturday routine, and I could work on the computer without worrying about anyone bothering me. I went back to the computer to see if the damn keylogger had recorded anything. To be honest, I doubted it had. Damn! I thought as I turned on the viewing function and saw that it had recorded a bunch of meaningless information, pages and pages of damn garbage that I couldn't make sense of. I scrolled through the endless list of individual keystrokes, trying to figure out what it was. And then I realized that someone had been accessing someone else's email account. There was a username and email address, those damn it symbols standing out like a sore thumb, and next to it was the password. I didn't recognize the email address, but the password was familiar. Harble means nothing to most people, but it was the first 3 letters of my wife's father and mother's Christian names. They used that name for their boat on the canal. But I'm afraid it was the email address, sexylegs1972 that caught my attention. It was too flashy. The most annoying thing, or perhaps what caught my attention in the first place, was the name Sexy Legs. That was one of my old pet names for Lindsay, but I should add that I hadn't used it in years. Well, since our first child started repeating words. Funny how you have to change your vocabulary when you have kids, isn't it? I was furious, believe me. Lindsay was the only other person besides me who used our damn computer, and she was 33 years old. Subtract 33 from 2005, and guess what you get? Yes, that's right. 1972. Lindsay's birth year. Sexy Legs 1972. What kind of email address is that for a married woman with children? Wait a minute, I remember thinking. Who the hell was Lindsay writing to under that name? I'll give you one guess as to what I did next. Of course, I went to the mail server and dug through her emails. To hell with the keyboard tracker. I didn't need it anymore. I was on the warpath and got to that damn email faster than lightning. If there was one thing Lindsay was always good at, it was hoarding. She was like me in that respect. Apparently, she hadn't deleted a single damn thing, not a single damn email from that jerk. They were all neatly saved, all her emails sent and received from Dreamboat at. I'll show that bloodsucker what a dream is, I thought to myself. I ask you, what kind of creep uses a name like that? But I discovered something that struck me as very strange. All the letters he had sent her, and copies of her replies, had been forwarded to another address. Requital now at xxxxxx.xxx. I wondered what this meant and why she had done it. The only thing I could think of was that she had another online friend, most likely a female friend, with whom she was sharing her affairs. I read all the emails in order, starting with the first one. It turned out that they had been writing to each other almost every day since the beginning of March. From the content, I gathered that they had obviously met in some kind of chat room, and I guessed that he had convinced Lindsay to create this email address so they could communicate more privately. Apparently, he used a computer at work and had to be careful about how much time he spent in chat rooms. As far as I could tell, he suggested she use the nickname Sexy Legs. Lindsay must have told him that was one of my old nicknames for her in chat rooms. His name was, at least that's what he claimed, Gordon Merritt, and he supposedly lived about 80 miles away from us. From the very beginning, I had no doubt about his ultimate goal. Of course, I had no way of knowing what he was saying to Lindsay in the chat room or how she was responding. In his first few letters, he came across as a sad guy looking for sympathy. He didn't say much about her, just complained about how badly his wife treated him. Mind you, he never said specifically what she had done to him. God, you know how it is. My wife doesn't understand me. He just told Lindsay that he needed someone he could confide in, and apparently Lindsay, being a soft-hearted person, took the bait. I have to say, I liked how he told Lindsay that she was lucky to have a good husband like me. Damn bastard. But gradually, as the weeks went by, Lindsay opened her heart and soul to him, and more of our personal details came to his attention. I noticed small changes in what he said to her. It seemed that our Mr. Gordon Merritt was an old master at this game. He picked out little things that, taken out of context, could really make me look like a complete idiot. Gradually, they began to appear in emails, and judging by them, Lindsay's attitude toward me changed. I didn't notice any changes in our family life. By early June, if you had read those emails, you would have thought Lindsay and I were on the verge of divorce. To be honest, if my suspicions had been confirmed, we really would have been on the verge of divorce. And of course, at the end of June, that bastard Gordon told Lindsay that he would probably have to come to our town on business soon. Why wasn't I surprised? A few days later, he said he would be coming sometime in mid-July. He even told her which hotel he would be staying at and asked if she wanted to have lunch with him. At first, she said it wasn't a good idea, but he kept saying that they could talk about their problems, and at first, Lindsay slowly started to agree. God, I was furious when I read that, and I had to force myself to keep reading. God, it's a good thing Lindsay left with the kids, or I probably would have ended up in court that morning. And then it suddenly dawned on me. Lindsay was going to meet him next Wednesday, but not for lunch, for a damn dinner at 7 p.m. at his hotel restaurant. They were going to meet and show each other pictures of their families, for God's sake. Damn, I thought. I was supposed to be at a seminar on the South Coast this Thursday. I didn't have these damn seminars very often, and when I did, I usually left the day before. That way, I didn't have to leave too early on the day of the seminar. Lindsay had planned everything perfectly. She even told me that on Wednesday she was going to one of her mother's meetings, or whatever it was called. That was it. On Saturday morning, I spent 3 hours reading those letters, 3 hours during which my comfortable life fell apart. Damn, I thought. I knew where Lindsay would be on Wednesday night. In that jerk's bed, I was sure of it. When Lindsay and the kids came home that day, I had a hard time not losing my temper. I still don't know how I managed not to fight with Lindsay, but I had learned one lesson from the books and stories I had read on the internet. I had to be one step ahead, and that meant I had to see a lawyer first. I should have transferred my savings to an account that Lindsay didn't have access to before she convinced some damn judge to block my access to our joint accounts. Yes, some may ask why I didn't just go to Lindsay and get to the bottom of things, since, judging by the emails, nothing reprehensible had happened yet. Let's think this situation through, shall we? I tell Lindsay that I know about her internet boyfriend and their plans for Wednesday night. Lindsay has 2 options. She can deny everything or admit it, apologize, and swear she'll never do anything like that again. If she denies everything, what proof do I have that she actually did anything? Emails aren't evidence, and I compromised that account by hacking into it. I can imagine what a good divorce lawyer would say if I tried to present these emails in court. What if she chooses the second option and asks for forgiveness? What proof do I have that she won't do the same thing in the future, only more carefully next time? This time, I found out about her plans completely by accident. No, I didn't consider forgiveness as an option, and I needed proof of her infidelity before I could talk to her. Otherwise, she could just deny that she had done anything wrong. I spent the rest of the weekend fighting my anger. I know I was too harsh with the kids a couple of times. Lindsay and I had a fight about it. It was annoying because it ruined our usual Saturday evening workout. Yes, by that point we had cut back to working out once or twice a week, mostly because of Lindsay's increasingly frequent headaches. On Monday morning, I took a couple of hours off work and went to see a lawyer. The bastard was all for negotiation and suggested I talk to Lindsay before proceeding. What kind of wimp did he take me for? I spent the rest of Monday looking for a better divorce lawyer and discovered that the woman I needed to talk to lived in a neighboring town. The problem was that she couldn't see me until the following Monday, but a check sent by mail would guarantee her services. I spent the rest of the day running errands and getting everything ready. Monday evening at home wasn't as bad as it could have been. I tried not to upset the kids or Lindsay. I really didn't want Lindsay to suspect that I knew about her plans for Wednesday evening. I spent most of Tuesday at the office, calling people and asking for the best advice on what to do with our savings. Damn those ISAs. There was nothing I could do about the money Lindsay had in her account. But I could take my money out of the country at any time. I could do the same with our savings. In the short term, there was nothing I could do about my pension fund. I planned to call and get everything started on Thursday morning. I couldn't risk Lindsay using her damn debit card and getting it declined. On Wednesday morning, I went to the office to take care of a few things. I didn't want to leave too much unfinished business for others. I decided that I wouldn't return to the office for about a week. Besides me, the children would be very upset when the scandal broke in the evening, and I decided that I needed to spend some time with them. Then I returned home around noon to change for the trip and pick up my suitcase. I usually left around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which gave me enough time to get to Bournemouth for dinner. I saw no point in changing my routine and giving Lindsay cause for suspicion. Before I left, Lindsay's mother came to pick up the children for the night. If Lindsay was just going to one of her mother's union meetings or something like that, I would have thought her mother would just look after the children. It seemed to me that she wanted to remind me of this on purpose. Damn, it was so obvious that I couldn't help but comment. Lindsay was very surprised that I asked why her mother was taking the kids for the night. Surprisingly, it was her mother who came up with some nonsense about Lindsay's father not feeling well and her taking the kids home so he wouldn't be alone. Yeah, I thought that was complete nonsense too. I said that if her father was sick, Lindsay should definitely skip the meeting. Her father wouldn't be able to rest with the kids around. Lindsay's mother immediately responded with some nonsense about the kids distracting him from his problems. When the old woman said that, I gave up and left the house. Lindsay kissed me goodbye and said she would leave the house around 6:30, so I should call her before then. I'll try, I replied. If I get stuck in traffic and am late, I'll call you on your cell phone. No, Lindsay replied rather sharply. Then she caught herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude, but I have a meeting tonight, and it would be bad if my cell phone rang at the wrong moment. You know that as chairwoman, I can't just leave the room to talk to you whenever I want. If you can't call me before 7, I'll call you later, okay? Yeah, okay, Lindsay, if you want. We can't have the committee thinking the chairwoman loves her husband, can we? I said, thinking to myself. You're in for a surprise. I'm crashing your little meeting tonight, girl, as soon as I said it. Oh, don't be like that, please. I know you don't think my job is important, but it is. I'm doing something important here. One day you'll be proud of me. What amazing words from Lindsay. She's going to meet her internet lover, and she tells me I'll be proud of her. Who does she think I am? I'll tell you, I almost lost it when she said that. I had to get out of the house before I exploded. I quickly kissed her and the kids, said goodbye to my mother-in-law, and ran out of the house as fast as I could. The station wasn't far, and I parked my car in the back of the parking lot, making sure it was under the security light and in view of the surveillance camera. I was losing my wife that night, and I wasn't going to lose my car, too. Then I took a taxi and went to the hotel. My plans for the week were coming to an end. I knew it was going to be a long day, so before checking into my pre-booked room, I stopped at the nearest store and bought a few cans of beer. Once settled in my room, I took out the things I had brought with me. To make sure everything went according to plan, I had bought a cheap walkie-talkie. Nothing special, but judging by the test, they worked fine between offices at work, so I should be able to hear what was going on in the room across the hotel corridor. However, I had to connect external batteries, as the small AA batteries in the devices did not hold a charge in transmission mode. Now all that remained was to get one of them into that room. That wasn't too difficult either. I had to book the guy's room for a few hours in advance and get a duplicate key. If you know where to get a copy of the room keys, it's not that hard. Making sure no one was in the hallway, I entered the room across the hall and hid the radio on the dresser. Only then did I think it would have been smarter to book a room next door. Then I could have quietly locked the door while I set up the radio. Lindsay and her lover would have been really caught off guard if I had entered the room through the connecting door. But on the other hand, they could have checked to see if the door was locked, and I would have looked even more like an idiot than I already did. Listen, no matter how brave you think you are, if your wife has decided to sleep with another man, you're an idiot. An idiot who can't satisfy his wife in bed. So it was 10 minutes to 9, and I figured they wouldn't need more than an hour to have dinner. Through the window, I watched Lindsay pull into the parking lot and enter the hotel. Yes, I wanted to go downstairs and watch them in the restaurant, but I decided it was too risky. I didn't want to reveal my cards until I was ready. I stared through the damn peephole in the door, which allowed me to see the door across the hall. It seemed like there were a lot of people walking down the hallway. The damn waiter in the white jacket seemed to be busy tonight, too. Someone must be having a damn good party in the room at the end of the hall, I thought. Suddenly, there was a noise in the hallway. Through the peephole, I saw the waiter talking to a woman. They turned left, away from the elevator. Then I heard a door close somewhere. I looked at my watch. It was already 10 minutes past 10. God, how quickly 20 minutes have gone by, I thought. Soon, 2 men walked by, laughing and joking with each other. I decided they were going to join the party, wherever it was, because although I couldn't make out what they were saying, I caught a couple of words. I'm damn sure one of them said, "It's going to be hot in the old town tonight." I didn't catch the whole phrase. I guess my brain finished it for me. After that, there was complete silence for a while, and then suddenly she appeared. My Lindsay, hanging on some guy's arm. Damn, I wanted to hear what they were talking about. The guy opened the door, and Lindsay, somewhat reluctantly, it seemed to me, followed him inside. I hurried to the table, turned on the radio, and pressed the record button on the cassette player lying there. "What would you like to drink?" The guy's voice came over the radio. "No, thanks. I thought you just came for the photos," Lindsay replied. "Oh, we have time for coffee," he insisted. Wait a minute. What's going on here? I thought. For the photos? What does that mean? Suddenly, I heard Lindsay scream, "No! Let me go!" Whatever Lindsay had planned for the evening, it clearly wasn't part of my plans or the guys. Regardless of how Lindsay ended up in this situation, my protective instincts kicked in. In 2 steps, I was at the door and threw it open. But I was met at the threshold by the waiter and the woman I had seen with him earlier. The waiter pushed me back into the room. "Police, Mr. Shingle. Wait, we need 2 more people in the room before we go in," he said cryptically. "But this man is attacking me," I tried to shout. But the man in the waiter's uniform covered my mouth with his hand to keep me from screaming. "That's what he thinks," the woman commented. "But Lynn will kill this bastard as soon as the other 2 show up." I was completely confused and, I think, very scared. The man and woman looked completely relaxed but alert. It seemed to me that they believed they were in complete control of the situation, but I wasn't sure. "Interesting setup," the man said, looking at my tape recorder and radio. "Primitive, but adequate. I assume you put your sister under the radio when you entered the room." I didn't even think to respond. I could still hear Lindsay's protests. But then I realized that there was more than one voice coming from the radio. At that moment, someone in the hallway shouted, "Run! Run! Run!" Then all hell broke loose. Through my still open door, I saw at least half a dozen men burst into the room across the hall. Police! Don't move! Another voice shouted. I could hear the sounds of a fierce struggle coming from the next room. I've got this bastard. He's not getting away. I heard Lindsay's voice on the radio. Are you okay, Lynn? Someone asked. I couldn't make out Lindsay's answer. There was too much shouting and talking in the room to understand who was saying what. The next moment, 3 men in handcuffs were led out of the room and down the hallway. Lynn, you're in trouble, girl, I heard on the radio. Jean thinks your husband is in the next room. Oh my God, what's Gary doing here? I heard Lindsay ask. I don't even want to think about it, a male voice replied. But before he could say anything else, a woman joined them and entered my room. He's listening in this room, I heard her say. Oh, shit. Well, I knew I'd have to answer for this sooner or later. Where is he, Jean? I heard Lindsay ask in a surprisingly calm and relaxed tone. Do you want me to talk to him? The man's voice asked. No, thanks, Roger. I guess I should have told him about it years ago. What? He doesn't know you served in the army? I heard Jean ask in a shocked voice. There was no reason to tell him. I was discharged on disability before we met, Lindsay replied. Then Lindsay, looking only slightly disheveled, appeared in the doorway of the room across the hall. There was an expression of deep remorse on her face as she crossed the hallway and entered my room. Only then did I notice that the guy in the waiter's jacket was still hanging on me. He let go of me, gave me a confused look, and left the room without saying a word as Lindsay entered. Am I in trouble? Lindsay asked, a flirtatious smile appearing on her face. Well, I thought we were in serious trouble, but now I have no idea what the hell is going on or why you got involved, I replied. Sorry, Gary, it was a special operation. Long story short, these guys were meeting married women online and then gang raping them, Lindsay said in a rather casual tone. And so, why did you get involved? I asked. Well, I heard reviews about their activities, and then one day I was following a chat on the internet and noticed a guy talking to a woman. I just didn't like him. We found the woman pretty easily, but tracking him down was a different story and it confirmed my suspicions. I took on the role of the woman online and spent the last few months playing with him like a fish, waiting for him to take the bait. Lindsay, who is us and why you? Oh, sorry, but we're getting into uncharted territory, Lindsay said, sitting down on the bed and patting the spot next to her, inviting me to join her. Close the door when you leave, Jean. He may be angry with me, but I don't think he'll do anything to you, she said to another woman who, unbeknownst to me, had followed Lindsay into the room. God, Lynn, I'm not afraid he'll hurt you. I've seen how you act, remember? But you've got a really nice guy there. I don't want you to hurt him too badly. Keep your hands to yourself. I found him first, Lindsay replied as Jean closed the door. To be honest, I had rarely seen Lindsay so confident. Honey, when we first met, what did you think I did for a living? She asked, turning to me. You weren't working. You were recovering from a car accident. When you recovered, you went back to work as a clerk somewhere in Whitehall until the children were born. Not exactly Whitehall, dear. Sorry, I embellished the truth a little. Actually, I worked in a rather large building on the waterfront. You know, the one that was attacked by terrorists a few years ago. Lindsay confused me for a moment. The only place on the Thames embankment where, as far as I remembered, the IRA had carried out an ambush was the MI5 building. A rocket had been fired at it a few years ago, and then it dawned on me like a bolt from the blue. Lindsay had a rather strange scar on her back, which she always claimed was the result of an accident. Of course, it's not something you think about every day, but she had another scar on her skin just below her left breast. For some reason, my brain suddenly decided to connect the two scars, and I realized where they came from and what they meant. My God, Lindsay, you weren't in an accident at work, were you, Lindsay? Someone shot you, didn't they? I blurted out. How perceptive you are, dear, she replied with a smile on her face. How could I not have figured it out sooner? I asked myself aloud. Because you don't deal with gunshot wounds every day, and I wasn't going to reveal my secret. When I was shot, I thought I was going to die, but I survived and decided it was time to get out of that business. Then, while I was recovering, I met you, and that convinced me where my future lay. I left the service and got a good, quiet job sitting at a desk and shuffling papers. But you never told me. Why? Because you didn't need to know, my love. That's how intelligence works. We don't advertise what we do. All you needed to know was that I was a government employee. After we met, I wasn't involved in anything dangerous. Okay. I think I understand where you're coming from. But all those police officers seem to know you quite well. Yes. We worked together a lot in the old days. When the IRA was rampant across the country, we often collaborated with the local police. When I spotted that guy on the internet, I called an old friend, and we planned everything. But I still don't understand why you never told me about this. Yes. After 7 years of living as a helpless wife, I couldn't imagine you protecting me when I was bait in what we believed was an attempted rape. But why you? A female police officer could have done that. First of all, I'm better trained in self-defense than the average police officer, and secondly, we weren't sure they hadn't tracked me down. I had to follow that guy for a while before calling for backup. They could have noticed the switch. Now, will you forgive me for not telling you everything? I don't know. It's too much information at once. I need to think. Well, while you're thinking, I'll take a shower. I assume you booked a room for the night. It would be a waste of money. Maybe when you've thought it through, you can come and wash my back. Or I'll wash yours. Lindsay got out of bed and started taking off her dress as she headed for the bathroom. Damn, I thought. Don't I know the woman I married? But by then, she was standing in the bathroom doorway, taking off her bra and smiling at me. I don't know who the hell she is, I thought, but she sure knows me. I fell down trying to take off my pants and get into the bathroom with Lindsay. I don't know how much time passed before I came to. Lindsay was lying on her side with her back to me. In the moonlight, I saw a strange scar on her back. I slowly traced it with my finger. That feels good, Lindsay whispered. Lynn, who shot you? I asked. Damn Yankees. We were chasing some Irish guys who were smuggling drugs to finance the purchase of weapons for the IRA. At least that's what they claimed. Personally, I think they were just common criminals hiding behind the IRA. That's the biggest problem with all these so-called freedom fighters. They create cozy havens for crooks. The damn Americans were hunting the same guys for drug smuggling. None of us knew that the others were also hunting these guys. When the shooting started, the Americans were on one side, we were on the other, and the criminals were in the middle. I was hit by a stray bullet from one of the American agents' guns. The Americans were pretty good. They put me in a helicopter and took me to one of their aircraft carriers. That saved my life. You see, neither the Americans nor us should have been on that island. Just like that, you were sneaking around an island where you had no business being? It's part of the job, my love. Someone has to do it. So your code number was 008? Don't be silly. James Bond is only in books. We don't have numbers, we have letters. Mine just happened to be SYG. Is that where the nickname Sexy Legs 1972 comes from? You're cheeky. You read my letters. Hey, good thing I did, or I would never have known who I married. Childhood in the suburbs. My name is Alex, and I grew up in a typical Connecticut suburb. It's the kind of place where there are more Dunkin' Donuts than traffic lights, and where everyone knows everyone else and knows everything about them. My father is a high school math teacher, an old math teacher, the kind of guy who's always ready to tell some silly old joke that will stick in your memory forever. When I was a kid, both my parents worked at my school. One was a teacher, and my mom became a librarian at the local elementary school. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. We lived in a small 3-bedroom house with no central heating, almost no insulation, and a backyard so tiny that every year my father tried unsuccessfully to grow tomatoes. My older sister Emma was the best student in the family. She got straight A's, was captain of the debate team, and was the teacher's favorite. I was one of those introverted, nerdy kids. I loved video games and learned to program in the hope that it would make me cool someday. A new beginning. Meeting Sarah. The real story began when I was 6 years old. That's when Sarah and her family moved into the house next door. She was 5 at the time, with blonde hair and funny glasses that were so big she looked like a little owl. I remember the day they moved in. Their truck was parked 3 houses down from ours. Lisa, Sarah's mom, finally convinced my mom to help them unpack. They were both big Stephen King fans, so they hit it off right away and talked for hours. Sarah and I ended up hanging out together on the same day she moved in. Our moms made us play together while they drank coffee. It was a little awkward at first. I was shy and would have preferred to play Pokemon by myself. But then she saw my Nintendo 64 and beat me at Mario Kart. Blue shells. Perfect drifts. I didn't stand a chance. From that day on, she seemed to latch on to everything she found interesting. Our families spent time together, too. Barbecues, trips to the countryside, which inevitably ended in disaster because neither of our fathers could figure out how to put up a tent. Holiday parties. Sarah's father, Mike, who looked like he could lift a truck with his bare hands, was a former military man who was completely devoted to his work, cried at Disney movies, and worked in construction. He helped with home repairs, which always ended with drinking beer and arguing about the Yankees and the Red Sox. Sarah and I were in the same class from elementary school, small town, one school and all that. I helped her with math, she helped me with English. We lived 3 houses apart, so we were always at each other's houses. We even had our own secret knock, 3 loud knocks, a pause, 2 slow ones, like super spies. But in middle school, something changed. Samantha. And then we went through that big, awkward childhood phase when puberty hit and kids started teasing us that the 3 of us were dating. In 7th grade, we didn't talk to each other for 2 weeks because, I'm not kidding, of a rumor that started because we all stayed after school at the same time. It was Jessica Martinez's idea, who came up with it at lunch, and Sarah ended up yelling at her, and for some reason that was totally fine. I guess that was middle school logic. It seemed to me that our parents always took it for granted that we would get married. They didn't pressure us, but during movie nights in the basement, they would exchange meaningful glances. My mom, like all moms, has albums and walls full of photos dedicated to memories from our childhood, smiles with gaps between our teeth, uncoordinated dancing, and yes, my unfortunate highlights phase. The beauty of our friendship was that we were different, but in the best sense of the word. I could sit at the computer for hours. Sarah was like a room full of people, and everyone in that room fell in love with her. But we were both fans of horror movies and the same video games. We watched The Ring when we were really young and scared ourselves to death. It wasn't a normal friendship, it was 15 years of family holidays and important events. When I got into college, Sarah was the first person I told. She and her mom went to pick out a dress for prom. It was in high school that everything started to change. Sarah finally got contact lenses, and I shot up in height. We were still best friends, hanging out in my basement, talking, doing homework, eating my mom's cookies. Then, in my sophomore year at the homecoming carnival, Jake Thompson asked Sarah out on a date. Jake from high school was a typical football player, tall, handsome, drove a BMW, and had superpowers of charm. And for some reason that really pissed me off. I didn't even know why. All I did was call him Dumb Jock. He was a great guy. He's a pediatrician now. But I was an idiot for being so jealous of him. Sarah told me exactly what she thought during one of our study groups. Sarah. Why are you so mean to Jake? Me. I'm not being rude. Sarah. You just said his brain is basically protein powder. Me. Maybe it is. Sarah. Oh my God, are you jealous? Me, blushing. What? No. That's stupid. Plot twist. I was jealous. I just didn't realize it took me a whole year to figure that out. When we were in our junior year, we were both in advanced classes. I was having a lot of trouble with calculus, so we started studying together on the weekends. And then, one Saturday, something changed. I noticed how she wrinkled her nose when she was struggling, how she tapped her pencil on her lips when she was thinking, and how she beamed when she figured something out. She looked up, saw me watching her, and I held my breath. I knocked over a can of Mountain Dew. She wiped up some of the spill and, checking to see if any was left, hit me on the head. Yes, very clever. But then, right there in the mud, she kissed me. She literally grabbed my face and kissed me. Some nervous switch flipped, and a few seconds later I was back in the world. When we finally surfaced to breathe, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What about Jake? She laughed. It turned out that Jake had invited her to the carnival just so she could help him ask my sister Emma out. Everyone knew except me. After that, everything was just lovely. We tried to hide our relationship, but we weren't very good at it. My mom caught us kissing in the kitchen. Sarah's dad caught us holding hands while watching a movie. It was somehow more intimate than a kiss. The reaction was priceless. Our moms patted each other on the back. My dad once had the strangest talk with me, which was full of car comparisons. For Sarah's dad, a former soldier, talk meant downing a week's worth of whiskey he kept on the porch of his cabin, where his hunting rifle was stored. He warned me that if I ever made his daughter cry, they wouldn't be able to find all the pieces. Then he asked if I wanted a beer and if I wanted to watch the game. Classic dad move. Senior year of high school, we were that couple, taking classes together, going to football games. She cheered, I trembled in the stands, wearing matching Halloween costumes. We even dressed up as Mario and Luigi. She was Mario, of course, because she always beat me at video games. But college is a different story. I enrolled at RIT in the computer science department. Sarah enrolled at UConn in the business marketing department, 5 hours apart. We had a long, tearful conversation and decided to try a long-distance relationship. Young love, right? The first semester went well. We FaceTimed every night at 10 if I wasn't busy programming. We were constantly in touch, synced our Netflix shows, and one of us would come home for the weekend, usually me because she had cheerleading practice on Saturdays. And I have to say, 5 hours in a shaky 2008 Civic with no heat is not as cute as the movies make it out to be. That strong belief that the person sleeping next to you tonight will never, ever, ever stab you in the heart, that belief, it shattered into a million pieces. It was Tuesday in March. You know how I always talk about working on this huge project at the office? Well, that was the night of our big system launch, the event that was supposed to define my entire life and career. I had been programming for 14 hours straight, and my only source of energy was cheap energy drinks and a nasty microwave burrito sold in a dark corner on the corner. I received the last email at 2 a.m., and my phone died. The battery was dead, and I couldn't find the charger. It was only later that I found it near the radiator, where it had been shoved by our one-eyed chaos gremlin, Mr. Whiskers the cat. I was going to write to Jake, my manager, about a critical bug that needed to be fixed. Sarah was already asleep, so I decided to grab her phone and send a quick message on Discord. And then my world fell apart. As soon as I unlocked her phone, we both knew each other's passwords then as now, a message preview appeared on the screen. It was from Chris. Yes, that Chris. The one she met at the marketing club she was a member of. The message read, "I miss you, baby. I can't wait." You know what I mean. I should have woken her up and asked her, but something deep down already knew. You know that feeling when your body senses that something is wrong, and you feel this coldness and heaviness in your chest? It hit me like a punch in the gut. I opened their messages. God, I wish I hadn't. There were hundreds of other messages, months of messages, photos, hotel reservations, inside jokes, personal plans. Those long nights at the office were never for the good of his company. And marketing society reunions? Pure fiction. Chris wasn't just an old friend. He was her boss, the head of her department. He was 15 years older than her, married, with children. They had been sleeping together for almost as long as Sarah and I had been living together. Here are a few messages I'll remember forever. I can't wait for you to finally leave him. Last night was amazing. He's so clueless, still working on that stupid proposal. Yes, she knew about the ring. My sister let it slip. I just sat there, in my own house, frozen on the IKEA couch we had all assembled together, laughing at the Swedish names and missing screws. I sat there, and it felt like hours went by, scrolling through message after message, each one seeming more painful than the last. Then Mr. Whiskers knocked something off the kitchen table. The noise woke Sarah. Everyone needs rituals, and mine in the wee hours of the morning is to stoke the wood stove and sit in the dark, sipping tea while everyone else wakes up to a new day. She stumbled out of bed and asked why I wasn't asleep yet. I didn't say a word. I just picked up her phone. I'll never forget her face. Not the guilt, not the shock, just annoyance, as if I had ruined her evening by finding out what was going on. Then came the strangest conversation in the world. She didn't deny anything. She just stood there in those stupid pajamas with little cats that I gave her for Christmas and said that Chris was her soulmate, that she had been waiting for the right moment to tell me. The right moment? After 20 years of friendship, 5 years of being together? When we had already built a life together? I couldn't take it. Not in the sense that I became aggressive. I'm not that kind of person. But I laughed. It was an empty, broken laugh, more like crying. I asked her if the right moment always came and went during family dinners, or on those nights when I lay awake hugging her while she cried about stress at work, stress that, let's be honest, was probably caused by guilt toward her boss. She started crying and called me cruel. Cruel. I told her to leave. Just take everything you need and get out of here. Go to your parents, to Chris, anywhere. You're not staying here. But it's 2 a.m, she said, as if I was the one being unreasonable. I replied, you should have thought about that when you were sleeping with your boss for a year. Not my finest moment, but I think I was allowed to be a little petty. Fausto's purgatory and legal hell, framed and erased. She gathered her bag, and I was left alone with Mr. Whiskers, who seemed to be watching the most exciting, dramatic event of his 9-life existence. Okay, we need to talk about this seriously, she said to him before leaving. Tomorrow. The next morning, I changed the locks. But you know what? That's not even the worst part. It didn't break me up. What happened next? And then everything really went downhill. Remember I told you that her father, Mike, was a scary ex-military man, and that her mother, Lisa, was like a second mother to me? We both grew up in strong families. But Sarah played another card, and without hesitation. The day after I kicked her out, I shut myself off from everything. I called work and said I was sick. Thanks a lot to Jake, who just said, take as much time as you need. I turned off my phone and spent the whole day cleaning to relieve the stress, with Mr. Whiskers standing over me like a one-eyed dwarf guard. I found one of her hair ties under the couch and burst into tears. Typical reaction after a breakup. But around 7 p.m., the landline rang. Yes, I still had a landline. I hope you and the rest of the world were as annoyed and frustrated as I was for the last 5 minutes while I called some angry woman in Brooklyn who didn't have Fios. My house had terrible cell phone reception, another Connecticut problem. It turned out to be my sister Emma, and she was furious. What did you do? She yelled. While I searched for spices, tears fighting to escape from under my sunglasses, Sarah got down to business. She told everyone what had happened. Her story? I cheated on her with a girl from work. Complete lie. The only woman I've ever talked to is Linda from HR. She's 60 years old and talks about her grandchildren at meetings. I yelled at her and kicked her out in the middle of the night. The only thing that was true was night. I became emotionally abusive, controlling, and looked through her phone. The cherry on top? I stole her mother's family heirloom, $50,000 worth of jewelry. That last one hit a nerve. When the smoke cleared, even she, Lisa, who noticed the jewelry was missing before all this happened. Sarah convinced her to put off reporting it, said she should look for the jewelry in the house. Who do you think had a key to the apartment? Yes, me. Guess who walked in unaccompanied and helped her father with the equipment? Me too. And then they could get to work. I tried to call my parents. No answer. I tried calling Sarah. Blocked. Mutual friends blocked me or wrote that I was trash. Only Emma stayed with me. Her words, "You're a fool, but you're not a liar." Then the Facebook posts appeared. Lisa wrote about betrayal, tagged my parents, and allowed people to crucify me in the comments. Finally, my mom called. And believe me, nothing hurts as much as hearing your own mother cry and ask, "Why did you do this?" without even letting you explain. I tried. I mentioned the messages, the affair, but Sarah had already told everyone. She told everyone it was all a lie, revenge. And I, never took screenshots until she deleted everything. I had no proof. Then the cops showed up. 2 cops, stone-faced, asking for specific dates that matched exactly when I was at her parents' house. They caught me on CCTV cameras when I was coming and going. I told them I was there because I'm family. I dated their daughter for a while. I was helping her father with his computer. They took notes. They didn't seem convinced. 3 days later, they came back with a warrant. I was arrested in front of the entire office. Linda from HR was in tears. Jake dropped his coffee. I wasn't released from county jail until 3 nights later. My cellmate, Big Mike, was cool. He shared his sausage sandwich with me. He told me his theory that pigeons are government drones. Still, it wasn't exactly how I imagined my 27th year would be. They found nothing and let me go. But the damage was done. The return, redemption, restoration, and a second chance that can be given not only to the chosen few, but to everyone. At work, I was put in human resources, and Linda didn't even look me in the eye when she told me I was fired. Too many negative reviews in the press, too many questions. Even Jake looked helpless. That's how I ended up unemployed, abandoned, accused, disgraced. My family considered me the worst of men. I had to pay for my apartment. They were going to bleed me dry for court costs. And the only living creature who still believed in me? A one-eyed cat. But you know what the worst part was? That wasn't even the bottom. Sarah wasn't done with me yet, not even close. That night, I broke down, and Dr. Chen later diagnosed me with a complete nervous breakdown. No, I found myself on the floor of my childhood bathroom at 3 a.m., eating stale Oreo cookies and searching the internet for articles on how to become a hermit in Alaska. Mr. Whiskers kept me company, never leaving my side and trying to steal cookies when I wasn't looking. Our true loyalty is to our friends above all else. A friend's intervention. A turning point. I reacted like an idiot to everything. The next morning, I woke up and there was Emma. She looked at the floor covered with cookies, and at that moment, her older sister woke up. She had to spend her savings to hire a real lawyer, whom I still owe to this day. She dragged me into the shower, made me put on something that wasn't Supreme or something like that, and even made me go to the gym because endorphins are magic or something. Then she did the thing that really changed my life. She made me sit down and write a real plan. Not some new age get your act together nonsense, a real hardcore recovery plan step by step. We even gave it a name. Operation Phoenix. Yes, we're nerds. So what? Emma told me to write down all the details of our conversations, all the false accusations, all the blows that prevented me from finding a job. I started keeping a journal. It sounded absurd, but it actually helped me maintain my sanity. I started getting freelance jobs on Upwork. The pay was terrible, but it was a start. I applied for every certification I could afford. I taught myself cloud architecture because apparently that's where all the money is these days. The gym really came in handy when I was feeling down. Italics advertisement. Who would have thought? Oh yes, everyone. But I was stubborn. My mood improved only slightly. 12 months later, I had a steady job that paid significantly better than my previous one. I even moved into my own apartment, with a luxurious cat tower and all the rest, so Mr. Whiskers is living the good life. I also made some real friends who listened to my whole story and continued to spend time with me. I even got abs. Okay, 2. But they're both worth mentioning. Best of all, my lawyer Maria started smiling at our meetings. That's a very good sign. Was everything perfect? Number I still had nightmares from time to time. Former acquaintances at the store still looked at me strangely. I still couldn't watch a romantic comedy to the end without feeling indignant. But I wasn't just surviving, I was rebuilding my life. And that's when the universe decided to mess with me again. It was a typical Wednesday evening. I had just finished some intense coding and was about to cook a Thai dish, pad Thai with extra peanuts, no judgment. Mr. Whiskers was dancing around before dinner as usual when I heard a knock at the door. I was paranoid. After everything I'd been through, unexpected guests were unwelcome. The Ring doorbell, best investment of my life. I glanced at the camera and saw her, Sarah. There she was in her fancy work clothes, red-eyed and with smeared makeup. My first impulse was to pretend I wasn't home. But then I remembered everything Emma and Dr. Chen had always told me. Look your demons in the eye. Besides, Mr. Whiskers had already meowed, so the secret was out. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. When you climb back up, you become a different person. In the past, I would have thrown open the door, ready for a fight or an apology. But the new me? I pressed record on my phone before opening the door. Confession, the final closure. She looked different. Not bad, just defeated. She tried to hug me. How dare she? I stepped back. Can we talk? She asked, as if we were on the set of a TV show called Long Lost Family. I let her in, mostly to figure out what was going on, but also because Mr. Whiskers was already staring at her intently with his one eye from the tower. What happened next was strange. She burst into tears, and, to be honest, I felt a tiny bit of justice in her unabashed, ugly crying. Then she laid it all out, and it was all recorded on my iPhone, so no one ever found that recording. Chris was a year-long fling. She once sold her mother's jewelry to pay off one of Chris's gambling debts. When she realized she couldn't get the jewelry back, Chris had pawned it. She panicked. And then she threw me under the bus to save her own skin. Chris eventually dumped her for a 22-year-old intern. And then, these were her actual words. I'm sorry I called you a liar and ruined your life. I ruined your career, your family relationships, everything. And now I can't look you in the eye. I couldn't tell you I stole the jewelry. My lawyer later told me those were the sweetest words she had ever heard. Pure gold. As soon as I closed the door, I called Maria. She screamed when I played her the recording. Connecticut has a one-sided consent rule, and Sarah had just handed us a whole stack of legal documents. Here's what happened next. We submitted the recording as evidence in the defamation case and civil lawsuit. The family's lawsuit was immediately dismissed. Sarah's family's lawsuit was immediately dismissed. They are not contesting my counterclaim for defamation and emotional distress. Her company conducted a full investigation into her and Chris. Some old friends started calling and apologizing. The best moment? Her mother, Lisa, listening to the confession on tape in the lawyer's office, watching her grieve over her own daughter who had set her up for her jewelry. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That was 2 months ago. Now Sarah and Chris are under investigation for fraud. I won the lawsuit. The terms of the settlement are still being discussed. My parents have apologized so many times I've lost count. Most of my old friends have reached out and we've made up. Mr. Whiskers? He got a new luxury cat tower. He deserved it. The money won't make up for a year of damage, but it helps. I paid Emma back. I started a therapy fund. I bought a better car. Goodbye, old beat-up Civic. But most importantly, I got my name back. The local TV station that reported my arrest, they did a story about the false accusations and their real consequences. I got a few job offers, but I'm staying with my company. They've been with me through all of this. Conclusion. A new chapter. Here I am. It's been a year and 4 months since my world fell apart. I'm alone. I'm strong. And I'm doing well. It's just me, a one-eyed cat and a clean slate. I'm not where I thought I'd be at 28, but I'm okay with that.